All right, so it's good to see you again. And this is really a very special week. And why is it special? Because on Shabbat is the anniversary of the passing of the previous Rebbe and the day that our Rebbe took on the leadership a year later. And so it's a very auspicious week, very special week in Chabad. And so it's a auspicious and special that we are studying Tanya this week. The Rebbe actually was very much connected with the Tanya to the point where he actually made a campaign that the Tanya should be printed in every single city in the world. Obviously, it's a very spiritual idea, but the Rebbe's message in that was he wanted people to know that the Tanya is relevant to everybody, whether you are living in New York City or whether you're living in Palm Harbor, Florida, or whether you're living in Antarctica. I believe they printed recently the Tanya in Antarctica. Wherever you are, the Tanya is printed in your place, and having it printed where you are means it's relevant to you. That's what I was looking for. Relevant. It's relevant to you. It's relevant to everyone. In other words, it's not just something that's relevant to Jews in a yeshiva in Bnei Brak or in Jerusalem. It's relevant to each and every single one of us, no matter where we are, and that is expressed by the fact that the Tanya is printed in every single place. So that's just a side point that I want to mention. It's a very special thing that the Tanya is printed every place. It was printed here many, many years ago. I don't know if I have any copies, but we can always do another print. Okay. So that being said, even by the way, during the last Lebanon War, I believe in 1982, when the army was in Lebanon, the Rebbe told them that they should print the Tanya while they were there. It's an interesting thing. So okay, but let us go on to our discussion today. So our discussion today is the beginning of it is going to sound very much repetitive to what we've discussed the last couple of weeks. However, there's good news about the repetition. Number one is it's likely you don't remember everything, like me. The repetition. Number two, even if you remember it, repetition always helps. But number three, which I hope to get, is we're going to gain additional insight and lessons to a section of Tanya that may seem to some of us not talking to us. So again, the technicalities of what we're going to discuss in this next section may seem technically not applicable to us, but we're going to see three very important lessons that are relevant to us. And this is why I always say the Tanya, or really any Jewish study, the text itself is the text. But you always have to remember that it can be relevant to you. You just have to look for it. You just have to seek it, making it applicable into your life. It's always applicable. You just have to know what lesson to find. And the lesson they may have found 50 years ago may not be the lesson that you find today. And that's okay. We're different. But the Torah contains lessons to everybody. That's the same thing in the Chumash, by the way. The Chumash, I mean, the lessons that people took 500 years ago may be slightly different to the lessons we're taking today. But that's the beauty of the Torah, the Chumash, is that it has this timeless and ageless wisdom that can be applied at all times in all places. So with that being said, we're going to delve right into our section here. And our section that we're going to discuss today, again, if you have the Tanya book, it's going to be page 159, section 4, is a technical discussion. The technical discussion is we are trying to understand, and this goes back to the beginning of the Tanya, how is it possible that someone who is not a tzaddik can think that they're a tzaddik? Okay? And the answer is, as we've maybe mentioned a couple times, is there are moments when even someone who's not a tzaddik can feel very much in control of himself. So again, what is a tzaddik in the Beinani's definition? A tzaddik in the definition of the Tanya is someone who has no evil inclination. So if you're a tzaddik, you would not feel any desires or any voices in your head to do anything against God. Okay, if you were a tzaddik. Now, a Beinani can put themselves in a situation where they're never having any such thoughts. They're never thinking anything. They're never getting any thoughts in their mind that would get them. So again, you can have someone who's not a tzaddik, but nevertheless is in such a good situation that they're never tempted. Okay. And what we're going to tell you is that such a person should not get confused and think that they're a tzaddik. So let us read this in the Tanya. Again, it's kind of repetitious to what we've discussed previous weeks. But as I said, 3 reasons we're going to repeat it. Number 1, maybe you don't remember. Number 2, even if you remember, you can solidify it. Number 3, we're going to discuss 3 important lessons from this section once we finish it. And Baruch, it's good to see you. Sorry, you missed the joke. Okay, there wasn't a joke. All right, so let's continue. Let us do this section 4, page 159. So he says like this. He starts off talking about the Beinoni. And the Beinoni, a Beinoni is someone a Beinoni is someone who never sins, but always has voices in his head of desire to sin. That's what a Beinoni is. So we're going to say like this. However, as we have seen, the deep core of the Beinoni's divine soul has no control nor dominion over the deep core of his animal soul. Meaning the deep core of the animal soul is always there. He never gets to change his animalistic soul. Okay, that's the Beinoni. He never gets to change it. It's always there. It's undefeated. It's just it just never wins. Okay, if you want to take a sports analogy, the other team is there, but they never score a touchdown, and they never stop you on defense. Okay, but they're there. They're there. They say their opinion. They're officially there to stop you. Okay. He says, however, the rule has an exception. While the Beinoni is defined by lack of refinement of his deep emotional core, that does not mean to say he never is successful at all. There are occasions when he is able to have some minimal mastery, at least over the animal soul's deep core. In other words, there are times when the animal soul seems as if it's not there. Okay? He says, when is this? The Beinoni has no control over the deep core of his animal soul, except when his love for God is manifested openly in his heart at specific times, such as during prayer. Here's going to be our first lesson for today, which wasn't even part of my original ideas. The Tanya indicates that on occasion it is possible for the Beinoni's love of God on the right side of his heart to partially encroach upon his animal soul's deep emotional core on his heart's left side. Remember, we said that your godly soul sits on the right side of your heart. The animal soul sits on the left side of the heart, which is full of blood. While the Beinoni's daily struggle is centered around mastery of the more superficial garments of the animal soul, thought, speech, and action, he is also able to wage a war to limited extent with the inner powers of the animal soul's deep core. So what I just want to point out over here is that, okay, to rule over your the actions, in other words, to decide that you're not going to listen to your animal soul, could take just willpower, right? Could take just willpower. Now, we've discussed many times, willpower alone probably is not a long-term solution, but willpower can hold you for a certain amount of time. But what he's adding here is that if you want to completely uproot the animal soul from the left side of your heart, even temporarily, like during prayer, the way to do that is by having great love for God. So what this tells me and you, another simple lesson, which Tanya harps on multiple times, is that the easiest way to overcome temptation is by being overflowing with love. This is psychologically, they talk about this all the time. For example, they say, what's the opposite of addiction? They say the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but connection, right? Connection with others, connection with people, connection with life. It's not just not taking the addictive substance, but it's being connected with whatever it is. So the opposite of many things is not what you think it is, right? So similarly over here, the opposite, in order to get rid of the animal soul completely, not to do what it wants, but to not even allow it any opinion, is to feel a great love of God. So even though me and you may not ever long-term feel like this Beinoni who every day they daven, every day they pray, every time they study, they feel, the animal soul is completely extinguished. But nevertheless, this does tell us that even a Beinoni who technically has no power over his animal soul can completely put his animal soul to sleep when he prays. We too can do that. Even though we're not Beinonis, we also can do that. And it can happen throughout the day. So again, the more that we can work on our love of God, the greater our success rate is going to be. So if people want to say, what can I do? How can I, get myself to do more, right? Someone says, I want to, keep more kosher. I want to, pray more. I want to study more. I want to, all these different things people want to do more. The best way to set yourself up to success is by working on your love of God. Willing yourself to do those things is going to be very hard. Like I said, the same applies to anything else. If you can create a love of anything that you want, then you will become a go-getter for that item. But let's continue. All right. So we're going to say there are 4 different times that a Beinoni can be in such a rapturous state of love of God that the animal soul will be completely asleep, will not even give any opinions. And again, we too can do that. So let us read to sum up the 4 different times that we've discussed in the Tanya over the last couple of weeks. Here are the first, sorry, they're not 4 different times. There are 3 different times, okay? So what he says is there's 4 stages of the Beinoni, right? There's 4 stages of the Beinoni. 3 of them, he doesn't feel the animal soul, but one of them is when he does feel the animal soul. So let's read. When a Beinoni is not immersed in Torah or prayer, he experiences urges for the animal soul and only succeeds in deflecting them through God's assistance of extra light shining in his soul. The deep core of the animal soul is unaffected. Okay, so that is level number 1. Someone writes here in the chat. Okay, praying, work on my love of God, asking for that, committing here to that. Okay, very good. Let's read 3 times that you can get a love of God. So he says, 2, for a period after meditative prayer, he experiences urges for the animal soul and only succeeds in deflecting them through the clarity of mind that remains after prayer. This enables him to make use of the principle the brain rules over the heart. The deep core of the animal soul is unaffected. So again, what he's saying here is that right after your meditative prayer, so I guess I have it wrong. So again, the period after your meditative prayer, you're still inspired, but you're not in high flame mode of love of God. Therefore, the animal soul will still give its opinion, but you'll knock it down right away. So then there's 2 times when you don't even feel the animal soul, and that is during devotional Torah study. It is possible that he will not experience urges for the animal soul at all. If he does, he can succeed in deflecting them through the clarity of mind in which has come through his Torah study, enabling him to make use of the principle, the mind rules over the heart, the deep core of the animal soul. Now, I want to say, he says devotional Torah study. Now, Torah study is generally an intellectual exercise. The Tanya will have a discussion later. What does devotional Torah study mean? You have to remind yourself when you're studying Torah, you're studying God's Torah. You are not just studying some great intellectual treatise or text. You want to become very smart, study the Torah. That's true. But the Beinoni studies Torah not just out of smarts, but out of a great desire and devotion towards God. And when he does that, he will not feel his animal soul. Now he says, number 4, during focused meditative prayer, he may not experience urges for the animal soul. Even the deep core of the animal soul may be partially affected by his intense love of God. At this 4th level, the Beinoni does seem to resemble the tzaddik. Why then did the Tanya insist the Beinoni is always like a rasha? So he's going to say, for even in this case, where the deep core of the Beinoni's animal soul is influenced during meditative prayer, that influence is limited to mere coercive control and dominions over the animal soul's deep core. So again, we're saying you're putting the animal soul to sleep. Okay, but that's okay. Bear with me again. It sounds repetitious. That's okay. We're going to have seriously amazing ideas that come out of this text. But let's continue. Unlike the tzaddik, the Beinoni does not actually change the deep core of his animal soul. He merely succeeds in curbing his desires temporarily. I don't know why it's not there. Okay. As the verse states, one nation shall overpower the other nation. The word overpower suggests coercion rather than transformation. As Rashi comments, when one rises, one falls. When the other rises, one falls. This is from the Torah. It says about Jacob and Esau. When one rises, one falls. So the same thing as our godly soul, animal soul. When the godly soul rises, the animal soul falls. With the Beinoni, the divine soul may rise over and influence the deep core of the animal soul, but after prayer, the situation is reversed again. In the next 2 lines of Tanya briefly describes its experience, how such an intense love is generated and why it ultimately fails to bring a permanent change. So he's going to give a Kabbalistic reason. In other words, the question is, and it's a question we ask ourselves, by the way, if I love God so much, what happened, right? If I felt so connected to God in Yom Kippur, where did all those feelings dissipate to? So he's going to say, he says like this. He's going to give a Kabbalistic reason. Hopefully, you all will catch it. And if you don't, that's okay too. But let's see what he says. When the divine soul overpowers and gains strength over the animal soul through meditative prayer, it draws in the source of Gvuras power, discipline, which is the power of Bina. What does this mean? Let's read. Here we are taught a Kabbalistic secret as to why of all religious activities, focused meditation has the unique power to touch the deep core of the animal soul. So this is going to be very, very important. Because again, this comes into the world purview of the Tanya, that meditative prayer is important. And I'm saying that this is important in the worldview of the Tanya because for many years there was a schism in the Jewish world, whereas Hasidic Jews had to focus on prayer and non-Hasidic Jews had to focus on Torah study, and they felt prayer was almost a waste of time. I don't want to say they felt it was a waste of time, but they felt you don't need to spend so much time on prayer. They couldn't understand the Hasidim that would pray sometimes for 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. They didn't understand it. Today, even non-Hasidic Jews have gone into deep prayer as well, lengthy prayer, which is a success of, in my opinion, Hasidic philosophy spreading to the world. But again, many people felt that why do I need to pray? Let me just study. And so here the Tanya is going to give us, aside from practical reasons why prayer is great in Torah study, why Kabbalistically prayer has a unique power that nothing else has. So he says like this. According to the Kabbalah, the 10 Sephiros, the energies that power the universe in general, and the soul in particular, we discussed this in our Kabbalah course, right? The 10 Sephiros are the 10 powers with which God operates the world, and it resonates as well within our soul. So he says like this. According to the Kabbalah, the 10 Sephiros that power the universe, are mapped out in 3 vertical columns. I hope you all came to the Kabbalah course, but if you didn't, we had 3 columns. To the right are the Sephiros associated with expansiveness, imagination, giving, and boundlessness. I'm going to read that again. To the right, starting with, wisdom, kindness, that the column of kindness, are Sephiros associated with expansiveness, imagination, giving, and boundlessness. The left side's energy is one of restraint, discipline, precision, and containment. The middle column seeks to harmonize and integrate Jewish news. Just to help you understand these two, I want to give you an example. For example, the difference between imagination and discipline. If you're running a business, the imaginative energy is what drives innovation in the business, right? It's pie in the sky, but it's great ideas of what you want to accomplish. But you also need someone in the company. Now, sometimes a single person can embody both, but many times it's 2 separate people. But there's often someone else in the company says, okay, hold on to your big ideas. I get where you're going. I see where you're going, but let's define it. Let's take it. Let's make it a little more specific. Let's take it to step by steps, what we would do. Now, the imagination guy hates that. He loves the big ideas. He sees the end picture. He sees how it's working. He doesn't see all the details behind it, right? He might see the latest, greatest iPhone with the latest features and everything that it can do without, and I'm not holding an iPhone, by the way, but without the details of what goes into creating that, So you might say, and so people sometimes confuse, that the left side are people who aren't giving, right? They're holding back, right? Restraint. Restraint doesn't always mean you're not giving. You're just giving in a restrained way, So again, you have the right column, which is very expansive, very giving, not so focused. Then you have a more defined, restrained, focused energy. You need both, and as I just described. Let's continue. This is going to be an interesting thought. Of the 2 poles, the left is endowed with a more intense power, as we see from our own lives, the immense power of discipline and precision. Again, you might say the imagination is more powerful, but the imagination doesn't get you very far. You need to be able to take those ideas and give them precision in order for them to actually have an effect in this world. So what really changes the world is not the imagination. It's the discipline. The restraint is what changes the world. And that's why the Tanya is saying is that the left column, restraint, discipline, precision, containment, that's what has greater power. Imagination is expansive, but it doesn't actually have power to change the world. So then he continues like this. Let's continue reading. Prolonged prayer meditation involves primarily the faculty of bina cognition, or as sometimes I call it, understanding, because it requires a precise focusing of the mind. Since the bina is on the left side of the sephirotic tree, it is the key to unlocking gevura, emotional power, which is also on the left side. In simplistic terms, an idea becomes especially powerful and compelling when you grasp it fully in all its glorious details, right? So if you can take an idea and explain in all its details, that's when it becomes a powerful and world-changing idea. This is what, by the way, the Talmud does. For those who study Judaism, right, you have the Mishnah. The Mishnah is general ideas, not well defined, and the Talmud takes the Mishnah and says, well, what does the Mishnah mean in this clause? What does it mean in that clause? And it may seem very detailed, but out of the detail comes power. And so the point is that prayer, which comes from meditation, and meditation, comes from a deep understanding of God, at least in Judaism. I don't know other streams of meditation, but Jewish meditation, as airy-fairy as it seems, actually starts from a very, very deep intellectual place. So those of you who are very intellectual, you can celebrate, okay? When Hasidim would daven very long, they would first spend hours studying text, because to really grasp, just 1 second. 1 second. To really grasp and to really appreciate and to really feel connected to something, you have to grasp it with all its ideas. Otherwise, it's exciting that it dissipates, right? You ever have good ideas? They're exciting that it dissipates. When you delve into the details, and the real line is God is in the details, okay? So when you delve into the details, then the idea shines. I know it's hard because nobody likes to study things in detail. But for example, we've had in this book different ideas. Let's try and show some of them, right? You have different practical lessons, right? So, you see these books they sell today, right? They sell them with these like, short blurbs, inspiring ideas, Zig Ziglar lines. I mean, they're important. Those have a place as well, to repeat a mantra, if you want to call it that, to repeat a line in your mind so it settles in your mind. But to connect with, for example, this idea that's over here, to connect with, this practical idea, okay, you really only get it and you only appreciate it after you've studied a couple pages of this, okay? That's when it shines to you. Now, somebody can get inspired just by this, okay? They may get inspired by that, but to me, that is going to be a short-lived inspiration, okay? It sounds cool, it sounds like a good idea, but like, what does it really mean? To truly connect with something requires deep study from the left side of our brain, requires deep study from the level which we read over here was, restraint, discipline, precision, and containment. And so those who would pray long hours would first spend many hours thinking about God. And not just, there are short, quick meditations, but they would like study about God in depth. That's what Hasidic philosophy is. Anybody, people think we're studying Hasidic philosophy, or we are studying, I would call us the philosophy of Hasidus. Okay, I'll say that again. We are studying the philosophy of Hasidus. Hasidic philosophy are really other books. Maybe let me grab one, okay? I'll grab one. Hasidic philosophy, really, a lot of people don't study this, are a bunch of Hasidic discourses, for example, okay? Hasidic discourses which delve into different Kabbalistic ideas in depth, in detail, kind of like a Talmudic analysis of mystical ideas. you got a taste of it in the Kabbalah course, but in Hasidic philosophy, it's very in depth. And just like studying the Talmud, you appreciate an idea much more when you get to the details. Hasidic philosophy will help you appreciate God much more when you get to the details. Now, in today's society, we're not built to appreciate that. Okay, we're not built to appreciate deep text. Most of us, like, we want, even like even like great inspiring speakers today have been dumbed down to 30-second YouTube shorts, or TikToks, or Instagram posts, 1-minute videos. People are not listening anymore to to the hour lecture. I mean, you are obviously, because you're on here, but I'm saying a lot of people are not, and so a lot of people don't appreciate the depth that comes from that left side that we're talking about, the power of the left side. But when you delve into those topics, and if you have the Sitzfleisch for it, how do you say Sitzfleisch in English? If you have the patience, I don't know, I forget the word. Sitzfleisch literally means sitting flesh. Literally means the ability to sit down and focus on something. Okay, if you have the Sitzfleisch for it, if you have the ability, your grasp and your appreciation for all these things is going to be so much greater. It's going to be so much deeper and so much more powerful. And oddly enough, your emotional connection to God will be that much greater. Now, I want to point out, by the way, there are some people who are naturally more emotional than others. And so you may look at someone else who, like, here's a 30-second clip and gets very emotional. Just remember, we're all different. But I would say, even the person who is naturally more emotional, if they would study more in depth, generally they would create a deeper, longer lasting emotional love towards God. But I want to throw that out there. I've had friends who, like, I see, they seem like so excited about God so easily, and like it's their. I'm not going to compare myself to them. I'm not going to say these texts are false, because I see, if I watch a 30-second clip, I'm not getting so emotional. Okay, that's my nature. But the principles are true. Whatever person you are, more emotional, less emotional, if you are to study anything with your bina, with your cognition, with that restrained, disciplined, precision part of your mind, you will connect with the ideas in a much greater way and create a greater emotional power. So let us, with that sidetracked idea, let us just take a look at the text, what he wants to say with that. It says like this. In simple terms, an idea becomes especially powerful and compelling when you grasp it in all its glorious details. This meditation takes place through focusing your mind on the greatness of God, the blessed infinite one, giving birth to a powerful love like flaming fire for God in your heart's right chamber where the divine soul manifests. Then the sitra achra of the animal soul in the left chamber is subdued. So again, saying the left side is the emotional side. If you base your emotions based on that left side, what we just spoke about, that meditation, the in-depth meditation, you will give birth to a very powerful love, and the sitra achra in the left side of your heart will be subdued. I just want to point out, for anybody who wants to study Hasidic philosophy, it is deep, but think of it like this: just as there's, the study of Talmud, which is the revealed parts of Torah, there's the study of Hasidic philosophy, which is about the hidden parts of Torah, and the hidden parts of Torah are more spiritual, and it naturally will make you feel more connected to God. Just putting it out there if anybody wants. There's plenty of resources out there, but it's a totally different branch of Torah study, and so some people have an easier time connecting with it, some people don't. Even myself personally, it took me till I was 19 to start to connect with it. Now you may say, well, that's young. Okay, but in our circles, we've been studying, we were studying this stuff for many hours a day from when I was 13, 14. But I only really started to connect with it when I was 19. And that's when I started. Okay, it took time. I'm just pointing out, if you don't connect, or you do connect with any part of Torah study, we're human beings. There's some things we'll naturally connect with to more, some things we'll less naturally connect to with more. Okay, let's continue. He says, but with the baiting, the negativity of the animal soul is not completely eliminated. This happens only with the tzaddik, about whom the verse states, my heart is empty within me. It is only a tzaddik who is repulsed by evil and detests it. In the case of a complete tzaddik, he finds it absolutely detestable and repulsive, or in the case of an incomplete tzaddik, he detests it but not absolutely as well. Okay, so this is just saying, again, the Beinani, when they pray, when they go through the focused meditation, stemming from the left side of the heart, they will the negativity of the animal soul will go to sleep during that time, but it will wake up afterwards. But a tzaddik, has completely gotten rid of the left side of his heart. Anybody wants to make any comments about the discussion we just had about the left side and the importance of the details and the in-depth study and versus short one-line inspirational ideas? If anybody wants to say anything, obviously in short. I know that's oxymoron, but anybody had anything comment about it? Or does this idea make you think about your Torah study differently? Thank you, David. Does this make you think about the topics differently? Because what I'm telling you is that it's hard. Yes, Ahava.
Okay, so I agree. I think sometimes less is more. So as I get older, and it can only equate it to race to finish the parsha, read the whole parsha on Shabbos, rather than breaking it up during the week, taking each piece and spending more time in depth sometimes and fleshing it out a little bit. It helps me personally to connect with Hashem. So I would agree with that as well.
Very good. So what you're saying is instead of just reading the whole Torah portion on Shabbos, you're doing what the Chabad does, which is you do one reading a day. And so by taking it slowly in pieces, allows you to get more depth into it and appreciate it more. Very good.
Reading the commentary with the parsha on that, and then beginning to take a look and to sort of dig it down. In other words, to go deep, like with the wells. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. What I want to add on that is and that's what I'm really trying to present, is a lot of times people look at the commentary and they say, why are they asking these questions? What's the point? But it's really through questions and questioning everything. And eventually you start to appreciate the questions. So you understand where they're coming from. But in the beginning, you first look at them like, who cares? Whatever. Why is that important? But it's only through getting every detail correct. And of course, appreciating the Torah is written precise. It's not like me, right? It's not like you can parse my words and say, why did he say it this way, not that way? Okay, I'm not God, I didn't write the Torah, Don't parse my words like that. My words are not precise, right? But the Torah, which is precise, we can take each text and study it and find great depth by breaking it apart with this cognitive process. Yes.
I think for me, I would like to work up to reading. Right now, I'm trying to develop a consistent belief that he's there. And I'm trying to feel a connection with Hashem and believe he's there. So I don't know how long that's going to take, because I'd like to get to the second step where I can really immerse myself in the reading and feel deeply, deeply connected to the reading.
Well, you don't have to, well, again, obviously it's your choice to make, but our belief is that you don't have to believe yet in order to study, because we believe the study itself will bring you to belief.
I have heard that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So let's continue here, because I really want to finish this this text, section 5. But by the way, just to explain why it says, the Talmud says, Hama'ar Shabam Machzir Lamutav, the godliness that's within the Torah will always bring you back to the right place. There are so many people who have studied Torah with just intellectual ideas behind it, wanting or knowing that it's their culture and studying it, but eventually being affected by it. And so, and honestly, even those of us who believe, we have moments of doubt. But that's just the natural part of our animal soul living within us will give us moments of doubt. I don't think anybody ever lives without, some people live without doubt ever, but many people live with doubts at moments. But don't define yourself by those moments of doubt. And so even if you get to a place where you're feeling, 50% of the time confident, in your belief of God, it's pretty, it's pretty good. Okay. Appreciate that we can doubt. There'll be discussion at the end of this section. Hopefully we'll get there. Okay. So let us get to the next section. Now this section Tanya is going to answer the technical question. So again, remember, as I've said many times, the Tanya is not just a thesis, but he also likes to prove his thesis from text. And so the Tanya has to prove that Tanya will have to show how certain texts that are written in our holy books do not contradict the Tanya's thesis of a tzaddik, a rasha, and a beinoni, of a wicked, intermediate, and a righteous. Okay, and one of the questions on the Tanya's thesis was, as we brought in chapter 1, is Rabbi, who was one of the greatest sages of the Talmud. He was known to never stop studying Torah. How was it possible that he thought that he was a beinoni? Okay, that's the question of Tanya. How is it possible that Rabbi, such a righteous man, would think he's a beinoni? Okay, and we're asking this question because how does Rabbi being a beinoni fit with the Tanya's explanation? Now, by the way, if you don't study the Tanya, I don't think there is a good answer, right? Because if you don't study the Tanya, you believe a beinoni is literally someone who does half good deeds, half bad deeds. Rabbi was definitely not a beinoni. Okay. Rabbi would be a tzaddik according to our old understanding of tzaddik. So this text is actually going to be a proof to the Tanya's thesis. Again, the fact that Rabbi can mistake himself for a beinoni is going to prove our thesis that a beinoni is someone who doesn't sin. If we were to believe that a righteous person is someone who does mostly good deeds, a wicked person is someone who does mostly bad deeds, and an intermediate person is one who does half and half, how could Rabbi ever mistake himself for a beinoni? But based on our new understanding of the Tanya, that a beinoni is someone who never sins. Now we're starting to get an idea, how can Rabbi think he's a beinoni? Because it's possible he could confuse himself, because just as a beinoni doesn't sin, he doesn't sin, but he thought he was a beinoni. But let's continue and add on to why he thought he was a beinoni. But so again, my point is this: if you don't take the Tanya's explanation, I don't know how you understand the Talmud. But let's continue. With the beinoni, the evil of an animal soul is compared to a person who is in sleep, who is able to reawaken from sleep once again. So again, in a beinoni, when he prays, the evil inclination is asleep. That is how the evil exists in a beinoni. While his heart burns with love for God when reading the Shema and praying, it is as if the evil were asleep in his heart's left side. Afterwards, it can wake up again. Now he's going to answer the question I told you. We now return to another question posed in chapter 1. The Talmudic sage Rabbi was quoted as saying, I am a beinoni, I'm an intermediate person. We wondered, how was it possible for Rabbi, was a tzaddik, to mistakenly conceive of himself as a beinoni? Even if externally speaking, a beinoni is indistinguishable from a tzaddik, surely Rabbi himself must have been aware that his love of God and revulsion of evil was at the level of a tzaddik. This is based on our explanation according to Tanya's understanding of a tzaddik and a beinoni. But now we know that the evil in the animal, so the beinoni can simply be asleep and dormant. It makes sense why Rabbi could conceive of himself as a beinoni. He simply looked at himself as a beinoni whose animal soul had drifted into sleep, but in its deep core remained undisplaced and unrefined. And so we'll read the text. And that is why Rabbi looked at himself as a beinoni, even though he possessed both the external and internal experiences of a tzaddik. Externally, he did not allow his mouth to stop studying. And internally, God's Torah was his delight day and night. And the delight he experienced during his study was passionate, like a tzaddik, with desire, fervor, and longing for a craving soul, for God with great love, at a level that could normally be experienced by a beinoni reciting the Shema during prayer. In other words, he's saying, unlike the beinoni we have encountered until now, whose intense love for God always subsides after prayer, Rabbi managed to maintain his high the whole day through a devotional Torah study. Why was this not proof for him that he was a tzaddik? Rabbi reasoned as follows. When a beinoni is at prayer, he feels the intense passion similar to a tzaddik, but the deep core of his animal soul actually remains unrefined and asleep. Perhaps then too, my devotional Torah study throughout the day continues along the same lines. It makes me feel like I have passion of a tzaddik, but my deep core remains unrefined. It is merely the high of Torah study that is camouflaging my unrefined evil and keeping me asleep. So again, to summarize, in case you got lost, because maybe I read it too fast, which is probably true. For those who wonder how I daven so fast, maybe now you get an idea. But anyways, which is not good according to Tanya, of course. But as he says here, that Rabbi thought that he was just like a beinoni. In other words, he just managed to maintain his inspiration more often than a beinoni. Now, as a beinoni has this inspiration during prayer as the animal soul falls asleep. Rabbi thought he's a beinoni that manages to continue his inspiration throughout the day because he would study Torah all day. But he thought in his mind, the moment he would stop studying, bam, his animal soul would wake up, and he is the beinoni. That is a tiny, and it's very beautiful. It's basically saying the difference between a beinoni and a tzaddik is what? Whether your animal soul is alive and giving you opinions. But we explained that even a Beinoni, when he prays, the animal soul falls asleep. And so now we can understand how Rabbi could have made a mistake. He thought that literally he was just so inspired enough of the time that his animal soul fell asleep. What I want to take from this, by the way, is something interesting. It sounds like a tzaddik, even when he's uninspired, he never thinks of sinning because his animal soul is gone. Just an interesting point. So again, a tzaddik is like a totally different level. There's even actually an interesting. There's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. He did a certain sin, not a sin like we understand. He was trying to accomplish something spiritual God wasn't happy with, and so it says God took away all of his spiritual powers. He couldn't feel love to God. He even forgot all his Torah. And there's a long story how he got it back. But what I would say is that even in that story, even when the Baal Shem Tov, the great Baal Shem Tov, had lost his passion, lost his knowledge of the Torah, even then he had no desire to sin. Why? Because he was a tzaddik. And a tzaddik, even when they're not passionately feeling God, for whatever reason, they will never desire to do something wrong because the animal soul is gone. It's gone, it's gone. You're not going to feel anything, it's gone. But a Beinoni, the moment the passion dissipates, bam, the animal soul comes back. And so Rabbi was a unique individual. He, I guess, his whole life was always inspired, or at least the last, whatever, when he said his statement, the last 10 years, he was an inspired person. And so because he was such an inspirational guy, he felt that it's possible that if his inspiration ever stops, he would revert to being a Beinoni. And so that was his mistake. But this idea brings out a very interesting idea, that a Beinoni needs to maintain the inspiration to put the evil inclination asleep. The tzaddik, even when they have no inspiration, there's no evil inclination. And so this, again, brings out the fact of what I've said the entire time. Tzaddiks are like a totally different level and well beyond anything that we're ever going to be. And if you're a tzaddik, you probably know your mission in life. So I know we always get the question, so what does a tzaddik do? It's I know some of what a tzaddik does. They inspire us, but what else does a tzaddik do? I'm not a tzaddik, or at least I'm not telling you I'm a tzaddik, so I'm not going to tell you. All right, so let us continue inside, as he says it in his text. Therefore, Rabbah considered himself like a Beinoni who spends the entire day at prayer. Since Rabbah's Torah studied the same emotional intensity as prayer, it was as if he prayed all day. And since when at prayer the Beinoni's animal soul is asleep, Rabbah was not certain if he was a tzaddik or merely a Beinoni whose animal soul was in deep sleep. Since the two are indistinguishable, Rabbah assumed out of humility he was one of the lesser standing. That's probably an interesting level in humility, right? If you're ever not sure, am I this or am I this? Right? We're normally going to pick on this, right? Rabbah says, no, I'm this. A less in humility. But anyways, the Tanya cites a source for the idea that a person might spend all day at prayer, as our sages of blessed memory taught, that while there are only 3 obligatory prayer services per day, a person has the option of praying as many times as he desires, if only a person would spend the whole day in prayer, says the Talmud. All right. I'm not going to read the text after that, but the point is that if you so desire, you could pray all day. All right, so before we go to the next part, I want to discuss 3 very important lessons, because even the Alter Rebbe, even the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, our Rebbe, asks the question on this section of Tanya. He says, how is this pertinent to us, right? How is this idea that, how is it pertinent to us, this idea that Rabbah thought he was a tzaddik but wasn't a tzaddik? But really he was just someone who was inspired all day. How is this important to us? And the answer is a very important idea. What do we learn here? We said that if someone is inspired enough, they will never feel their animal soul. Okay, if you're a Beinoni, if you're inspired enough, you'll never feel your animal soul. And from what the Tanya is saying, it's not a problem. In other words, a Beinoni can go their entire life not even knowing that they have an animal soul if they walk around inspired enough. And this, the Rebbe says, is a lesson in a prayer we say every morning. Let me pull it up. Let's see, where's the prayer? Let me get a prayer book. This is an important prayer. A lot of people overlook. We say every day, we ask God not to test us. We ask God in our prayers, we don't want to be tested. Where's the prayer? Okay, we say in the morning, in the morning prayers at page 7, we say, you can see that, may be your will, Lord our God, God of our fathers, to accustom us to study your Torah, to make us cleave to your commandments. Do not bring us to sin, nor into transgression or iniquity, nor into temptation. Okay, and we say it a couple other times in the prayer. So we ask God not to tempt us. So at the same time that we ask God that we shouldn't sin, we also ask God, don't test us. We don't want to be tested. So we all know that when we're tested in life, that's when it brings out our greatest strengths. But we don't want to be tested, number one. We don't like to be tested, okay? We would much rather be the Benini that gets to pray all day than to ever be tested. So as beautiful as it is to be tested, we request not to be tested. But I want to take one more step above that, is that we shouldn't test ourselves. In other words, just as someone can pray all day and prevent themselves from ever having any temptations, we in our lives should distance ourselves from tempting places. Okay? So I'm not a Beinoni, I will have temptations. But I shouldn't tell myself, well, I've been successful so far in not sinning. Let me go to a temptatious place, right? So let's say I've been keeping kosher. I'll just walk into McDonald's. I'll smell the smells and I'm not going to eat anything, right? Don't test yourself, okay? Beinonis would much prefer to pray all day. And we would also prefer not to test ourselves, okay? And this, by the way, gets into rabbinic law as well. The rabbis, this is what the rabbis do. The rabbis made all these laws to keep us very far from sinning because they want to set us up for the best chances for success. We should set ourselves up for the best chances of success. We should never get too high-headed, never get too haughty, never get too drunk on our success that we should tempt ourselves. It's much better not to tempt yourself. And honestly, people who tempt us too often typically will eventually fail. So this is number one. It's just as the Beinoni. The more they pray, the better success they have. You know, you might say, well, you know, why pray for so long? Just don't pray for so long, but you keep using your mind control. But again, the more that you can set yourself for success, do that. Okay? And this also gives us an appreciation for many of the decrees of the rabbis. Many of the decrees of the rabbis are this. For example, some of these decrees, by the way, have become today very important in modern society. For example, the rabbis forbade a man and a woman secluding themselves in a room. Okay, so you know, let's say you're a single guy and you have a cleaner coming over to your house to clean your house. You cannot. You have to. You know, there's laws about that. You can't just do that. We know today, with thankfully, you know, society that's finally cracked down on all different levels of you know, immodest relations that happen in different areas. You also, just by the way, are setting yourself up to liabilities if you are not following the Torah's instructions in this. Just putting them out there. But what I am saying is that why put yourself in a compromising situation? You know, if you want, there's a book that tells you all the laws. It's very complicated laws, by the way. It's not, I mean, it's not complicated, but there's different laws. What if your wife is in town? She could come home any moment, all different, or vice versa. What if your husband's in town, could come any moment. But the point is that even if you tell yourself, well, I'm not a lowlife, like Why do I need to care about what these rabbis say? Follow these rules, follow these laws, these things the rabbis have given us to help keep us away from ever doing anything wrong. And it'll keep you good. It's a worth it thing. So this again gives, number one, appreciation for the rabbinic law. The rabbinic law says, I'd rather not tempt myself. I'd rather not tempt myself. Number two is, now, by the way, why is I'd rather not tempt myself connected to what we said? Because what we've said till now is we basically described the person who could be praying all the time and think that they're righteous, but the moment they stop praying, their animal inclination disappears. And we have that too in our lives. We're just like this Beinoni, okay? Again, the Beinoni, when he's praying, the evil inclination is gone. So you may think, well, I'm a tzaddik, let me go anywhere. I'm going to be like the Baal Shem Tov, right? The stories of tzaddikim going to crazy places. Why? Because tzaddikim are not tempted. Tzaddikim can go to the worst of worst places. They won't be tempted, okay? The stories of tzaddikim saving people from going into really terrible places, saving them. We cannot do that, not necessarily. We have to be careful. We have to know our limits. I did hear many years ago, by the way, that for many years, the Rabbi actually did not want to send the Chabad Shliach to Vegas. It's an interesting tidbit that I heard. Eventually he did, but for many years, the Rebbe did not want to send the Chabad Shliach to Vegas. You have to know when and who and how, and it's not simple, especially back in the day. Today the world is connected and the whole world would know what the rabbi would do if he did anything wrong in Vegas. But back in the day, you go to Vegas, as they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, The world was less connected. So, it was something that was put into consideration. But, or at least I think so. That's my estimation. I don't know if it's true. But my point is that we could have a moment when we're inspired. And what we have to learn is we need to set ourselves up for the best success. So if you're inspired on Yom Kippur to keep kosher, and you come home and you have tons of non-kosher food in your house, the best thing you could do, let's say you come home and you say, I'm not eating any more bacon. The best thing you can do is take that bacon and throw it out. Don't tempt fate, because you might wake up the next morning not so inspired, okay? This is the lesson that we're getting, right? Don't be confused. This Beinoni, don't get confused, Mr. Beinoni. Don't get confused right now when you're inspired to think that inspiration is going to carry you after you pray. And you go to places and do things that you can't handle. So us too, we get inspired at different moments. When the inspiration is there, take advantage of it, because inspiration comes and goes, just like that Beinoni. Don't ever be bought into your inspiration. Don't ever think that's me. I'm going to keep this up. Okay, set yourself up for success during your moments of inspiration. That's number one. Right? You hear all the time, right? People who are inspired, they do things, they smash their screens, they throw out the food, they're inspired about a diet, they buy a treadmill, all different things people do. You got to get it, right? They say get it when it's hot. Number two I want to add is that just like a Beinoni who does everything right has to know that not everything that comes to his mind is right, okay? Because he has a good inclination, evil inclination. We have to know not to buy into everything our mind tells us, okay? We have to know where our ideas are coming from. Are they coming from the good side or the bad side? So again, this is another important thing. Not all our ideas are correct. That's hard to say, but not all ideas are correct. You have to really delve deep and understand. Even if you were a Beinoni, you were righteous, you were a Beinoni, meaning you never sinned in your life. Even if you're a Beinoni, you have to know that not all your thoughts are correct. Don't buy in and think that every thought you have is correct. We too should never get too haughty and think, I'm so good, I'm so righteous, right? I think there's some politicians out there, right, that think that they could never do anything wrong, right? Without naming any names, right? We should never buy into that. We should be smarter than those politicians. Know that not everything that comes to our mind is right and correct. It requires time to think. And the last thing that I want to mention here is knowing yourself. Okay, you can go. Especially have a lot of work to do. I'm ending with the last lesson I'm ending, but yeah, okay, we'll let you go. You have a lot of work to do. Okay. The last thing I want to say is we shouldn't get depressed. Knowing ourselves helps us not be depressed. You know, we had a discussion last week about not getting depressed, but I want to say is that imagine you're the Bainani. Okay, now we're not Bainanis. Imagine you're Bainani. You never sinned. You're praying, and you don't even feel any evil inclination desires. And the moment you finish praying, suddenly you feel like you want to go to the nearest place to sin. You want to go to wherever. I'm not going to mention places. Okay, you want to go to the nearest place to sin. Now you might get depressed. Like, what's with me? I just finished praying. I'm so holy. I'm like, who am I? You might get confused. And the Tanya is telling you, if a Bainani can have, after they pray and have such devotional prayer to God that their evil inclination goes to sleep, it comes right back at them. How much more so we should not get depressed. Knowing who we are should make us not depressed. When we get those feelings, those thoughts, when we get those thoughts of wanting to do terrible things, don't ever buy into that is you. That's just your evil inclination. He's awake. He's reminding you that he's there, and move on. So in short, what did we learn today? The lessons we picked up today. Number one is learning things in depth are very important. That's how you can really connect to things. We had a couple practical ideas. Number two, we learned don't we are Bainanese, so we may have crazy thoughts, and don't think that every thought that we have is correct. Let's not be too egotistical. Number three, knowing who we are will make us not depressed when we get those bad thoughts. Number four, I think I'm up to number four, is don't bring ourselves to tempting places. Okay, even when we're in a moment of inspiration, don't tempt ourselves. And just the opposite, when we are inspired to do things, do actions that will set you up for success of your inspiration. And finally, we can appreciate all of the rabbis' different decrees, because they want to help us stay away from compromising situations. Thank you all. And that is the end of my class for today. And we'll see you all